Catch 'em all.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a new iPhone video done in the AutoCAD Web App. Okay, first thing we're going to do here is we're actually going to box out the size of the front face of the phone, which is 2 3/4 by 5 11/16. So on your web app, you're going to box that out, and you'll see on the left side where my students currently are. I'm going to catch them up to that point, and then we're going to push forward. Okay, so taking the line tool, starting anywhere and going 2 3/4, and then going down 5 11/16, across again 2 3/4, and then up you can just close. Okay, now looking back at the plan, you can see that all of the corners are rounded and that there are 3 lines or 3 versions of that, all 1/16 apart. Okay, so we need to figure out what the outside fillet is, and then we'll be able to get the rest of them. The outside fillet, if you look in the bottom right corner down here, is radius 3/8, and the next one in is radius 5/16. But the 5/16 doesn't really matter because we're actually going to join the entire outside shape and then offset the entire thing in at the same time at 1/16. So radius 3/8 is what we need to know right now. So going in here, you're going to do your fillet radius of 3/8, and you're going to go around and do the 4 corners. Spacebar brings you back in. 2 corners, spacebar, spacebar, and there you go. Okay, now if I select all of this and I type join, that converts it to a polyline, which is just one full shape. Since I know that these shapes are 1/16 apart, I can then do offset off of this shape and go in by 1/16, and then go in by 1/16 again. So now I have the 3 outside circles, or whatever you want to call them. Okay, shapes. So next thing you're going to do is you're going to take a line and you're going to draw it off of the 3rd midpoint down, and you just draw it wherever. We don't know how long this is going to go down yet, but we have to create this inside piece right here. We need to know how wide it is, how far from here to here, and how deep this line is. Okay, and then what the fillets are. So looking at my plan, you can see that up here it's 1 3/8 total from the left side to the right side. So I got to get half of that number because it's based on the center of the phone. So half of 1 3/8, I like to split those numbers in half. Half of 1 is 1/2. Half of 3/8, you just double the bottom number, it becomes 3/16. So 1/2 plus 3/16 now. So half of, I should say half is the same thing as 8/16 plus 3/16 is going to be 11/16. So going back to here, using your offset tool, you're going to go off of this midpoint line, 11/16 to the left and 11/16 to the right. And then we don't need this. This was just a dummy line to figure out where the center was. Okay. Now, how deep is that line? Looking at the plan, you can see over here, and this, I know this drawing looks complicated. It's got a lot of dimensions to it, but it's really just figuring out or finding the number that you need to see and just breaking this down into one piece at a time. Okay. So 7/16 is how far it is from the very top of the phone to the bottom of that line. So again, you're going to do an offset off of the very top line. Now the problem with this is that when I go to offset this, it's going to try to offset the entire thing. We don't want that. So when we click on the outside one, you're going to type explode. That's going to pull those lines back apart, and now we have a separate line that we can just offset off of. Offset, top line going down, 7/16. And now you can see, you don't have to do this step, but I'm just going to clean it up here. You can see that those are the corners. If I were to trim this, it's open like that. The last thing is just the fillets, and there's actually 2 fillets here as well. Okay, so those fillets are a radius 1/16 here and a radius 3/32 here and here. So when we do our fillet, make sure you hit radius. 3/32 is this one, and spacebar, and then this one, and then fill it again, radius 1/16, which is just a little bit smaller, there, whoops, and there. Alright, so you get something like this. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw the buttons on the side of this face, okay? Now in order to do that, we're actually going to have to start making the side view of this, the side profile of the phone itself. So the first thing we need to know is how far is it from the right side to the left side of this side view, and it's 1.5 inches. And then the whole left side view is 1/4 of an inch, and then it goes 1/2 again, and you get the back side. Now we don't need to know where the back side is yet because we're going to draw the entire front face first and then mirror it across over the middle line of the side view, and that's going to give us most of the back, and then we would just have to do the logo and the cameras. Okay, so for now let's back up for a second. From here going over 1.5 and then 1/4. The height is obviously going to be the same on the phone because it doesn't get any taller or shorter as you're flipping the phone to different sides. So right side here, make sure that this is a separate line, if not explode it. This is going to be 1 1/2, and then off of this one is going to be 1/4. Now you can't just take a line and connect the bottoms because that's not where the bottom is. There's a big fillet down there. So what you need to do is take a line off of the very bottom and go across like this, and off of the very top and go across like that. That's going to be a line that you can now use extend on, and we can extend this and this and that and that, and then we can trim these, and now you have the side view of the phone. Okay, so now the side view, the fillets, they are a radius 1/8, and there's 2 of them. So we're going to do fillet radius 1/8, and you're going to go 1 2 spacebar 1 2. Same thing on the bottom, 1 2. And I may do this video in 2 parts because it's a long video, and I don't know if I want anybody to have to watch a half-hour video all in one shot. So maybe we'll do 2 parts total. So let's figure out these buttons. Alright, so looking at the buttons, we have a couple different things. We have these antenna lines that are on the phone, and they are 3/30 seconds. And then under that is a sleep-wake button. Let me zoom in a little bit here. I don't know, I think it's going to stay white because it's a picture actually. I'm not actually opened up in AutoCAD. But 3/30 seconds for the antenna line, 1/16 wide for the sleep-wake button, and then that's just the one that you flip back and forth for, silence or vibrate or whatever it is. And then that's 3/16 tall, and then there's a 1/4 space, and then you got a 3/8 button, and then you got an 1/8 space and a 3/8 button. And the only thing that was missing from that is where do you start all this stuff? From the very top of the phone, going down 1/2 inch, and then going back up 3/30 seconds is these antenna lines. Although before we even do that, we're probably going to do this second line in here. This is actually a line for the screen because the phone itself has this fillet going this way as well, and you can see the side of the screen when you're looking at the side of the phone. So I don't really have a great example. I have my phone here, but you can't really see it from the camera. I don't think it's going to work that well. But anyways, here we go. You'll see it as I'm drawing it. So let's see, how far is that? 1/32. Okay, so that's the first thing I would do here. I would do an offset off of the right side going in 1/32, and I would extend that to the top and bottom. That's going to be the screen that you're going to see on the side. And then we're going to start with the other stuff. Now we're going to need to put a line back up here just as a dummy line to start so we can start measuring down. Okay, if you want, you can even extend this out to the left a little bit. That way when you're going down, the line is going all the way across. Okay, so the first measurement was let's do the 1/2 inch and get the antenna line. So it's 1/2 from the top and then 3/30 seconds back. So offset, we're going to go down 1/2, and then we're going to go back up 3/30 seconds. And now we're going to trim that, and you won't see that out here, you won't see it there, you also will not see it in the screen. That is the same as what's on the bottom. So if I do MI for mirror, I can mirror that across the midpoint to midpoint, and then it says erase source object, you're going to hit no, and that gives you the antenna line at the bottom. You can also use that to take a line and bring it across in here to get your antenna line on this view. So those antenna lines are going to look like this. They're just going to be in the outside two. There's 1, 2, 1, 2, and they're the same thing on the bottom. So if I trim this, I don't want it there, and I get rid of it here. And then I'm going to offset those, and they're going to go, let's see, I came off the top one, so these are actually going to go down 330 seconds. 330 seconds. Now, rather than doing that work again, let's select these two with a box. Let's hold shift and select these two with the box. That way we get them at the same time. And then we're going to do another mirror. And you're going to do that off the midpoint of the phone. Erase the source, no. And now we have them up top. Okay. So now there are other ones as well. I guess we should just take care of those now since it's something that we're doing. Let's see, how do we get to those? We gotta find the right dimension right here. 330 seconds is the width. That still doesn't tell us how far over it is, so let's see if it's in the other view. Not there, not there. Half inch off of that line. Alright, so here you go, 1/2 inch. From the left side of the phone, when we're looking at the back, 1/2 inch over gets us to the inside most line. So now that applies to all 4 different corners. So if I go like this, and start with a line on this left side and go up, you're going to go offset off of that line going to the right 1/2 inch, trim there, trim there, trim there. You just want that line right there, and that is the inside most part of that line, which means that we're going to offset that line to the left 330 seconds. So let me just double check that. Yes, you're going to the left 330 seconds. So now, like I said, you can take these two and mirror those across the midpoint of the phone. Erase the source, no. You can then select those again and, oop, we don't want the top line though. Mirror over the midpoint of this side of the phone. Going to the left. Erase the source, no. So now we got all the antenna lines on there. Okay. Now let's go back to doing the buttons. The buttons are 3/4 of an inch to the sleep wake. Then, like I said, 3/16, 1/4, 3/8, 1/8, 3/8. So let's start with the first one, 3/4 and then 3/16. Going down, 3/4, 3/16. That's the sleep wake. 1/4 is the spacing between. 3/8 is the button. 1/8 is the space between the buttons. The two buttons, you got a volume up, volume down, and then 3/8. Alright, so now what I would do is I would trim all of this, trim all of that, and then I would jump in here and see if you can just get all that trimmed out too. Okay, now what we need is how wide these buttons are, and they are centered off the middle of the view of the phone. So if I go like this, I take this line and I go straight down, that's going to give me a line down the middle, and I'm going to measure to the left and right for these buttons. I don't need this line anymore. The width of those buttons, 1/16 for the sleep wake, which is then actually split in half and curved with a radius 1/64. I'll talk about that in a second. These buttons are a radius of 1/32, and if something has a radius of 1/32, that means that the width of it completely, or I should say if you have a line down the middle, you would go to the right 1/32 and to the left 1/32. So let's do that first. So modify, offset. Going off of this to the left 1/32, going off of the same original line to the right 1/32, and then we can trim where the spacing is, trim where the spacing is, and then we're actually going to get rid of these up here because they're not part of that sleep wake button. Alright, so we'll leave it like that for right now. And you can, if you want, trim here and then get rid of this. We don't need that either. Alright, so we're at this point, we don't need the middle ones. Those were dummy lines to find the center of the phone. We also don't need these lines extending out here. So this is kind of like when we did the door and window assignment. You just got to box out these things on the inside, making like a tic-tac-toe board, and then just figuring out what you have and where you're going to do your fillets. So like I said, these fillets are a radius 1/32. So just like the top of the phone, it's just a little bit smaller. radius 1/32. You're going to go like that, spacebar, like that, spacebar, all the way around. That's one button. Just keep hitting spacebar, it brings you right back in. You could also hit multiple at the bottom. Actually, you know what? It doesn't look like the web app gives you that option, so I'm going to say keep hitting spacebar. All right. Okay, now the sleep wake button. It is 1/16 wide, which means you're going to go half of that, which is actually 1/32. So we could have left those lines there. Sorry about that. 1/32 to the left, 1/32 to the right. Now this part gets a little interesting because the button itself moves from left to right inside there. So we have to show one of these as a void and one of these as a button. So fillet, fillet radius 1/32. We're gonna go, oop, that's too big. Let's see if that's a 1/16 width, 1/32 is one size, so it's actually gonna be a 1/64. Yeah, sorry, it's 1/64. So fillet radius 1/64, and you're gonna go 1 2 1 2 1 2 spacebar 1 2, and then you'll notice that that line actually got stolen when you did the fillet, and so did this one, so just connect them back. And then the last thing is fillet radius 1/64 there, because the button has to fit into that spot when you go to move it to the right, and that's that button. Alright, now the actual buttons on the left side of the phone and on the right side of the phone, you have the sleep wake, you have the volume up, volume down, and then on this side you've got the power. Okay, so the power we haven't figured out yet because that's on the opposite side of the phone. We'll do that in a minute. But the other buttons here, we can just drag those across. We just need to know how far out those buttons go. So looking at the left side, or I should say maybe it's on the right side here, you see the buttons stick out by 1/32. Okay, and that's the power button there, so we're going to figure that out in a minute. But looking at these buttons, they stick out by 1/32. So if I do my offset tool again and I go off the left side, I go out 1/32. Now I can take my line tool, or I can actually, this might be easier, let's do X line, and let's go off of the top going straight to the left. Spacebar gets me out of there, spacebar gets me back in there, bottom to the left, spacebar, spacebar, top to the left, spacebar, spacebar, bottom. So you can see like spacebar also gets you out of the current tool that you're in, whoops, but it also brings you back in. Now that I've done that and erased something, I would have to type X line again because hitting spacebar would just bring you back into erase. Alright, so we got all these lines going across. First thing is let's trim out here. Second thing is let's trim in here, and then let's select and get rid of all these. Now we just got to figure out this part. We don't want it here, and we don't want it there. We don't want to mess with these though. Those antenna lines are going to stay. And then you're going to trim the top, between the buttons, and the bottom. I don't think there's a fillet on those. I can't really tell from the picture, but it would actually look just square, so you're going to leave it the way that it is, just like that. Okay. Last thing for this video here is I just want to figure out the right button, and then I want to mirror this view across. Okay, so the right button is measured on this part of the plan. It says 1 5/16 down to the top of it, and then 5/8. So 1 5/16 from the very top, 1 5/16. You'll notice that that line doesn't go all the way across, so I'm just going to go like this. And you could trim here if you want, it doesn't really matter. Alright, and then that next number was 5/8 for that big button, so we're going to go offset, we'll go off of this one down 5/8, and then the thickness of those buttons, how far they stick out, going off the right line out to the right, 1/32. And also I know that I'm moving pretty fast here, but my students tell me that it's not bad because they're able to pause between my steps. So hopefully that works out for everybody. So that goes 1/32 out. We're going to trim top, bottom, and then these lines, and then we have that button figured out. Okay, So last step here, just select all this. I should say last step in this video. I'll do a part 2 afterwards. You're going to mirror the entire thing over the midpoint or center of this view, straight down. Do you want to erase the source? No. And now we've got the entire back view. Now the only thing that's going to change here is that you're not going to have this entire inside shape. You will have a camera back here, you'll have an Apple logo, we've got the antenna lines already figured out on that one, we've got the buttons already mirrored, which is nice, and then you'll just need a camera assembly and speaker assembly up here, and a hatch pattern on the phone, and then we're done. So that'll be in part 2. This was part 1 of the iPhone assignment. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Alright? Later.